Hello, my name's Cathy Gale. I'm the infant feeding specialist midwife at the Great Western Hospital. Here at the Great Western Hospital we aim to provide best practice care for our breastfeeding mothers and bottle feeding mothers. So for mothers that have chosen to bottle feed, we've made this short video to show you how to make up the baby's feed safely. It's also available in a little yellow booklet that we have online on our website, so you can refer to it again. But this is just going to show you how to make up the feed as safely as possible. We get this information from the Department of Health and the Food Standards Agency. When you're choosing a milk for your baby, make sure it is an infant formula. When we make up a feed, we're not showing a brand because it doesn't matter which brand your baby has, but do make sure that it's a first infant formula. So what is infant formula? Most infant formula is made from cow's milk that has been specially treated to make it suitable for babies. Sometimes it is made from goat's milk. Don't use any other type of formula unless you ask your doctor, your health visitor or your midwife. Infant formula is available in two forms. There's the ready-to-feed infant formula, and there's also infant formula powder, which needs to be mixed up, and that's what I'll be showing you in the video.
Preparation and hygiene. Even when tins and packets of powdered infant formula are sealed, they can sometimes contain harmful bacteria that could make your baby ill. Although these bacteria are rare, the infections they cause can be life-threatening. To reduce the risk of infection, make up each feed as your baby needs it, using boiled water at a temperature of 70 degrees centigrade or above. Water at this temperature will kill any harmful bacteria that may be present. Remember to let the feed cool before you give it to your baby.
So when you're getting a bottle ready for your baby, it's very important that all the equipment is really clean. So always make sure you wash every part of the baby's bottle in hot soapy water and use a bottle brush. Milk can collect in all the little crevices, so it is very important to use a bottle brush to make sure that all the little nooks and crannies are completely clean. The other place to pay particular attention to is the teat itself, because milk can collect in the teat. So it's very important to give that a very thorough clean as well. And when you've washed the equipment, always rinse it in cold running water, and then it will be ready to go in the steriliser. There are three main methods of sterilising your baby's feeding equipment. The most important thing is to make sure that everything is scrupulously clean before it goes in the steriliser. The three main methods are the steam steriliser, the boiling water method and the cold water method. The cold water method involves making up a liquid every 24 hours. The clean equipment then goes inside the steriliser and is held underneath with a special thing which holds it under the liquid, which makes sure that all the bubbles are gone and the solution can get around all the pieces of equipment, and it stays in there for a certain length of time according to the manufacturer's instructions. The boiling water method involves putting your lovely clean equipment underneath boiling water for 10 minutes and letting it boil. Be very careful with that, obviously with young children around, and you need to let it cool down before you take it out. The third method, and probably the most commonly used, is the steam steriliser. And the steam steriliser, basically you put the equipment in and you make sure all the bottles are facing downwards, and then the steam sterilises the equipment from inside. It's set on a certain timer. It mostly takes about 8 minutes, that amount of time, and will tell you when it's ready. When you take the lid off, obviously again be careful of the steam, which may scald you, so be a little bit careful there. Those are the three main methods. There is a steam steriliser which will actually go into a microwave and works on the same method. But those are your ways of sterilising the equipment for your baby's bottle. So, when you're ready to make up your baby's bottle, make sure you wash your hands thoroughly first before you do anything else. And make sure that you clean the preparation area thoroughly as well. When you're ready to make up your baby's bottle feed, what you need to do is fill the kettle up with fresh water. Every time you make a feed, make sure that you discard any old water that was in there, it may have been boiled a few times, and you're actually going to then fill the kettle up with fresh water each time. You want to have at least 1 litre of water in there, and then you're going to put the kettle on to boil and wait till the kettle boils. When the kettle's boiled, you have 30 minutes, and the temperature will then be staying at the right temperature to make your baby's feed up. So what I suggest is you put a timer on for 30 minutes. The water doesn't have to cool down for 30 minutes, but within this 30-minute window, water will be the right temperature to make your baby's feed up. So I'm going to take my extremely hot water and I'm going to put it into this sterilised bottle. I'm going to make up a small feed for a newborn baby, so I'm going to make up 30 mils, which will be plenty for the first few days. So here I have the infant milk powder. That is now, I'll take the top off. And we can take a scoop. I'm going to add 1 scoop to 30 mils because that's what this manufacturer has. And just loosely levelled off with a clean knife. And then I'm going to add the milk powder to the recently boiled water. Then some sterilising kits will have a little tongs like this, which are useful to help get pieces out. That hasn't pulled through completely, you can pull it through. And then all you need to do is shake it gently to mix up the water and the powder. So you now have the baby's formula. It's going to be much too hot to feed to the baby, so at this point it's important that we run the bottle under the cold tap to cool it ready for the baby. And with the sterilised lid on top, and make sure everything stays nice and clean for the baby. And I'm going to run that under the cold tap. Now to check for the temperature, what you can do is just put a little bit on the inside of your wrist here, where it's sensitive. And actually that is still slightly too hot, so I'm going to run it under the cold tap again. What you can do as well, you can stand the hot milk in a jug of cold water, and that will cool the milk down pretty quickly. There, so now that's ready to give to the baby. So, if you're using ready-to-feed infant formula, you need to wash your hands thoroughly. You then need to always check the expiry date, because there'll be an expiry date on the ready-to-feed formula and there'll be an expiry date on the powdered formula. And then you simply open the bottle and pour in as much as you need. And put your sterilised teat on ready for your baby. Always keep the cover, the lid of the bottle on when you're not actually feeding the baby, and that will reduce the risk of germs getting to your baby.
Check the manufacturer's instructions to find out how much water and powdered infant formula you will need. Different types of formula come with different scoops. Make sure that you use only the scoop that comes with the powdered infant formula that you are using. Making up a feed with too much powder can make your baby ill. For example, they can become constipated and may cause dehydration. Too little powder will not provide your baby with enough nourishment. By using the scoop provided, you are adding the correct amount of powdered formula. Ready-to-feed liquid infant formula is sterile. This can help to reduce the risk of infections. It is suitable for high-risk infants, for example those who are preterm, low birth weight, or particularly vulnerable to infections. Ready-to-feed liquid infant formula should be prepared and stored according to the manufacturer's instructions. Remember that all feeding equipment will need to be sterilised if you are using a ready-to-feed liquid formula. A feed should be freshly made up when it is needed to reduce the risk of infection that can make your baby ill. If you have no choice and need to store a feed, it should always be stored at the back of the fridge and for no longer than 24 hours. Infant formula that has not been used and has been kept at room temperature must be thrown away within 2 hours. Bacteria multiply very fast at room temperature. Even if a feed is kept in a fridge, bacteria can still survive and multiply. The risk of infection increases over time, so that's why it is important to make up the feed each time your baby needs it. If you need to feed your baby away from home, the convenient choice is to use ready-to-feed infant formula milk with an empty, sterilised feeding bottle. However, if you are using powdered infant formula, this is the safest way to make up a feed to take with you. You will need a measured amount of infant formula powder in a small, clean and dry container, a vacuum flask of hot water that has just been boiled, and an empty sterilised feeding bottle with a cap and retaining ring in place, which can be removed when you're ready to make up the feed. Make up a fresh feed only when your baby needs it. The water must still be hot when you use it, otherwise any bacteria in the infant formula may not be destroyed. Remember to cool the feed before giving it to your baby by holding the bottom half of the bottle under cold running water. Move the bottle about under the tap to ensure even cooling. Make sure that the water does not touch the cap covering the teat. The vacuum flask does not need to be sterilised but should be cleaned and only used for your baby. The boiling water should kill any bacteria present in the flask. If the flask is full and securely sealed, the water will stay above 70 degrees Celsius for several hours. Make sure that you are sitting comfortably. Always hold your baby close to you and look into their eyes when feeding. This helps the baby feel safe and loved. Hold your baby fairly upright for feeds, with their head supported so that they can breathe and swallow comfortably. Brush the teat against your baby's lips, and when your baby opens their mouth wide, allow them to draw in the teat. If the teat becomes flattened while you're feeding, pull gently on the corner of your baby's mouth to release the vacuum. Your baby may need short breaks during the feed and may need to burp sometimes. When your baby does not want any more feed, hold them upright and gently rub or pat their back to bring up any wind. This may be a very small amount, as wind is not as big a problem as many people think. Look out for your baby's cues that they have had enough milk. Don't try and force your baby to take more than they want. Make snuggling up and feeding your baby a special time for you both. It is a time when you and your baby can bond with each other. While you're feeding your baby, maintain eye contact. Take time to cradle and caress your baby. Look into your baby's eyes and your baby will look back at you. This helps your baby feel safe and loved. You can also give them a different view of you and the world around them by switching arms halfway through feeding. Skin-to-skin contact helps your baby feel safe, secure and warm. Being cuddled naked against your bare skin, covered with a blanket or towel, for as long as possible is important. You can also have skin-to-skin contact while you are bottle feeding. If you and your partner try to give most of the feeds yourself, this will help build up a close and loving bond with your baby.
So how often should you feed your new baby? Well, newborn babies have actually very tiny stomachs and they will only take small amounts to start with. And they might take 10 mils, 20 mils, 30 mils for the first few days. And as they get bigger, their little stomachs get bigger over the first week. By the end of a week, they may well be taking 150 to 200 mils per kilo per day as a very rough guide, so you know what your baby will be drinking. But just start with very small feeds until your baby's used to it. Be guided by the fact of the baby's behaviour. Be guided by the baby's behaviour, because the baby will show you body language to show you when they're hungry. They'll show you little feeding cues, such as sucking their fists and licking their lips, and you'll get to know when your baby's hungry. And also, during the feeding, be really careful to watch your baby for the signs that they're having enough, so that you're not overfeeding the baby. Let the baby stop and start and take the feed at their own pace. Although most babies gradually settle into a feeding pattern, they vary in the early days very much in how often they want to feed and how much they want to feed. So just be guided by your baby. Feed the baby when they're hungry. They tend to feed little and often, and so they won't always finish their bottle. However, a big feed does not necessarily mean your baby will go longer between feeds. Your baby's likely to need feeds at night for the first few months, but these feeds should gradually get less as the baby gets older. How will you know that your baby's hungry? Well, after a while you'll get to know the signs that show that your baby's ready to feed. Your baby will start to move their head and mouth around and suck their fingers. If you can spot these signs before they're crying for food, your baby will actually be easier to feed. Babies cry for lots of reasons. If they've been fed recently, then hunger's unlikely to be the cause of their crying. Babies like to be cuddled and they like to be held. How do you know if your baby's getting enough formula? This is a question I get asked a lot. Well, with breastfeeding and bottle feeding, the way that you'll know the baby's getting enough milk is that the baby is having the correct number of wet and dirty nappies, and also the baby's weight will be doing what is expected. Your baby's weight is monitored by the midwife and the health visitor to make sure that they're growing, and that will tell you that your baby's getting enough milk. If you're combining breastfeeding and bottle feeding, that's lovely, and any breast milk that you're giving to your baby is great. If you would like to have support with increasing your milk supply, please do ask your midwife, your health visitor, and contact your local breastfeeding support groups. In Swindon we have breastmates groups and mum-to-mum groups, and there are trained peer supporters there who can help with things like increasing milk supply and checking that things are going well. And they're very happy to help you with that. Science now tells us that babies develop best when they're responded to. So responding to them during feeds and at other times is really, really helpful for your baby's brain development. Babies love to be held close. They love to talk and chatter and watch your face. When they're newborn, they won't be talking, but actually there's this lovely conversation to and fro between parents and babies, and they love to watch your face and listen to your voice. They'll be familiar to it from inside. Babies like the feeling of being held close. It makes them feel safe and calm, and it helps them to grow well. Babies like to be held close. It makes them feel safe and comfortable. This is why we recommend limiting the feeds to just a few people, so that the baby becomes familiar with the way their close adults will hold them and feed them. And it's all part of building up that lovely relationship with your baby. So don't be afraid to hold your baby. Don't be afraid to pick your baby up and cuddle them. You cannot spoil a baby. Thank you for watching this video. It's available on the GWH website, and we hope it's been helpful to you. If you're breastfeeding or you're bottle feeding and you have any questions around feeding and caring for your baby, don't hesitate to call your midwife or your health visitor. Thank you.